The Sunday paper is still a tradition, but in a changing world, it's a tradition that's under siege. The old newsroom cry of "Stop the presses" has taken on a new and depressing meaning. Our cover story is reported by Jeff Greenfield.
When it comes to news about the news these days, no news is good news.
In Denver, they stopped the presses for good today. After nearly 150 years in operation, the Rocky Mountain News published its final edition.
Then the Minneapolis Star-Tribune filed for bankruptcy protection.
And the Seattle Post Intelligencer is set to close if a buyer isn't found by April.
Are we really facing the demise of the great metropolitan daily? It was, after all, the newspaper that became as powerful a force as any it covered, the kind of power Charles Foster Kane delighted in wielding.
Is that really your idea of how to run a newspaper?
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.
It was the newspaper that brought news of crime and corruption to its readers, with an energy and occasional manic recklessness captured in the classic His Girl Friday.
Hello, Duffy, get set. We got the biggest story in years.
And it was the newspaper whose proudest moments came when it held the powerful to account, even bringing down all the president's men.
Is there any proof they're trying to bug the National Democratic Chairman?
I think it's obvious they're trying to bug O'Brien. They wouldn't go all that trouble to bug secretaries.
No, there's no proof.
But wait a minute.
Hard as it is for those of us whose day cannot begin without the newspaper, it is a medium that cannot survive without dramatic change. Indeed, it's not clear if it can survive as we know it at all. But does that mean an enormous vacuum, an absence of the kind of information a democratic society needs?
It's the end of the newspaper business right now, at this point in time.
Why is longtime media watcher Michael Wolff predicting the imminent end of the newspaper? Consider the facts. Just since 2000, daily newspaper circulation has dropped from 55 million to 50 million. In the last 2 years alone, print ad revenue for papers dropped 28%, more than $11 billion, and that was before the recession really kicked in. Classified ads, the most profitable of all, have migrated to the web on sites like Craigslist. And while the newspaper does have a home online, readers don't pay a dime to read it. Just ask the next generation.
The internet is something that we constantly have with us. I constantly have my laptop on.
I read the New York Times online, the Washington Post online.
Realistically, I prefer the internet. I do, because things are updated constantly.
For newspaper veterans like former Des Moines Register editor Geneva Overholser, now dean of the USC School of Journalism, the potential loss of the newspaper is a clear and present danger to our civic life.
Newsrooms in newspapers have been the predominant source of original reporting about what's going on in City Hall and in classrooms, about Washington, about the international scene. There'll be a time when we really do need to stand up and say, wait a minute, it's getting pretty close.
By contrast, Michael Wolff is highly optimistic about the future.
It is potentially an incredibly good time. We have a much, much bigger audience than we've ever had before. We can do it faster, we can do it better, we can even do it prettier than ever before.
Michael Wolff is putting his energy behind his ideas. He's founded the Newser.com website, but the site itself illustrates the uncertain nature of the future. Just about everything it offers is not his, but content that is aggregated, as they say, from existing newspapers, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Daily Telegraph, the Washington Post.
So could I ask a blatantly obvious question?
Please.
If all these things go away, what are you going to aggregate?
Were they to go away, I can guarantee that I can deliver the same information and at the same quality from a broad range of other sources.
There's evidence that some of those news sources are already here. TalkingPointsMemo.com is a reported blog with a liberal perspective. It broke the story last year about U.S. attorneys allegedly fired for political reasons. Instapundit.com, with a conservative libertarian tilt, provides analysis and opinion. And what about the local angle? Editors, always tell their reporters to get the local angle. Well, you can't get more local than the suburban community of Montclair, New Jersey.
This is cute.
Where Deborah Gallant and Liz George have launched a website, baristanet.com.
We're much more dynamic. People are coming, they're having a conversation, they're exchanging ideas and opinions. You can't do that on the local newspaper site.
It's produced from their living rooms and from a coffee shop. And they say the web offers powerful advantages over the printed page. quite apart from the cost advantages of no paper, no presses, no delivery cost.
If you hear helicopters overhead and you think, is there a police search going on? Is there some kind of news breaking? You're not going to wait till Thursday till the local paper comes out. You're going to go right to baristanet.com and see what's going on up the street.
But for Mark Porter, editor of the Montclair Times, baristanet.com represents something very different.
And they're primarily just like a lamprey eel feeding off the work of another entity. They haven't gone to the meeting, they haven't interviewed the 5 or 6 sources that a reporter has done for a newspaper, and it really is pilferage.
So, can the immediacy of the web and the depth of the traditional newspaper somehow be fused?
That's a large audience.
In Philadelphia, entrepreneur Brian Tierney and a consortium of wealthy investors bought the 180-year-old Philadelphia Enquirer and the tabloid Daily News some 3 years ago. They've placed a multi-$100-million bet that the papers can adapt and survive.
We had a series recently on the EPA and the Bush administration. It took several months to do. It cost $250,000 to do that. I can't do that with 2 bloggers. I can't do that the way all news radio in this market does it, where they basically buy our newspaper and then paraphrase our stories every day. We are the originators of the investigative work that needs to be done.
But Tierney is facing the same dilemma every paper is. While he could save a fortune becoming web-only, readers don't pay for it, and advertisers won't pay nearly what they do for a print ad. One answer, he says, readers will have to start paying, either with a subscription or a so-called micropayment, a few cents for each article they click on the web.
Not that much money, given the overall scope of what television bills and cell phone bills and all the rest of it, our cable bills are. And I think people will pay it.
At the heart of Tierney's efforts to save the enterprise is the website, Philly.com, where content from the Enquirer and the Daily News is combined with original fare.
A package on the mayor's budget proposal.
It sounds like the kind of editorial meeting any newspaper has, but there are big differences.
We could also leave the video.
The website folds in video.
Probably some of the best broccoli rub I've had in town.
Text, music. It updates constantly, changing its look and content by the hour.
So I'm wondering if those would do better on one and do the music as a light lunchtime.
More opinion right after lunch, for instance, when users might need a jolt of caffeine. Fusing print, video, and the web is drastically changing what reporters do and must do. Enquirer editor Bill Marimow.
Not only do you have to know how to report and write and blog, you need to know how to use a video camera. You need to know how to appear before a TV camera, be on radio. You really have to be a maestro of all the media.
And that, says 30-year Enquirer veteran Gail Schister, comes with a cost, but one that has to be paid.
The big downside of speed is that a lot of times you don't get the quality control, and you don't get enough editing, and you don't get that extra phone call to check something.
And while Schister mourns the potential loss of the printed page, she's a realist.
It's generational. People under 50, they don't know what they're missing because they never had it. And more importantly, they don't care. I still get excited when I pick up a new paper and I open it for the first time. But I'm a dinosaur, and I accept that.
Good, thank you.
Right now, Brian Tierney's company is in bankruptcy. He argues that if the people who read the Enquirer pay for it, with a higher newsstand price and a subscriber fee on the web, the enterprise will survive and flourish.
Times change, but you can either look in the rearview mirror and lament the past, or you can say, you know, it's damn exciting.
But what if the Enquirer, what if newspapers in general don't survive? Optimists are confident that new forces will arise. The more wary voices, like Geneva Overholser, say, maybe.
This democracy might thrive with a very different looking press, but I don't think we've figured out yet a complete menu that would replace newspapers.